This man looked up, a meteorite came crashing down, instantly creating a large crater in the ground. Dr. Jack and Bob received the news and rushed to the scene. Jack carefully observed the meteorite and discovered that mold had already started growing on it. Despite only one night having passed, Bob wanted to dig out a piece to take back to the lab, but to their surprise, the meteorite started bleeding. Back at the lab, they examined it under a microscope and found that the cells inside were unusually active, dividing rapidly at several times the normal speed. Jack immediately called Bob over to observe this incredible phenomenon. However, when Bob looked, he noticed that in just a few minutes, the single cells had evolved into multicellular organisms. This major discovery made Jack realize that if they could conduct in-depth research, they could become big shots in the scientific community. To prevent others from beating them to it, they brought their respective assistants to the crater, intending to take the entire meteorite. But upon entering the cave, the scene before them left everyone in shock. Not only was the ground covered in mushrooms, but it was also crawling with worms. In just one day, these organisms had completed an evolution that would have taken humans decades. Jack picked up a worm to observe it more closely, but it inexplicably died right before his eyes. After some deduction, they discovered that the weakness of these alien creatures was oxygen. Back at the lab, the worms started dividing and reproducing, which greatly excited the two scientists. They hid the samples in the laboratory. Meanwhile, a staff member discovered a large number of alien worms crawling out from cracks in the ground, and in a nearby water tank, there was an unknown monster. On the other side, Jack and Bob were preparing to go back to the cave to investigate further, but they found that it had already been placed under military control, and they no longer had access. Fortunately, they still had the samples to continue their research. However, when they returned, they discovered that the lab door had been forcibly opened, and the lab was in chaos. All the sample data had been wiped clean. The two were furious. That night, they quietly put on staff uniforms and snuck into the cave. Inside, they found that a complete ecosystem had already formed. Suddenly, an alien worm tore open a hole in Bob's protective suit. Bob quickly turned on his oxygen supply, but the alien worm had already burrowed into his thigh.